Okay. So just a few housekeeping items. So we're recording the session, so you can all refer back to it, watch it, listen to it at another time, or at other times. Um, Chat's on. It's intimate. If I would prefer that we don't use chat and that you just speak. We're sitting around my table. Let's pretend that that's the case. Um, get rid of your phones, silence them, stay with me here. Um, if questions do come up during the presentation, just to move through, I'd appreciate if you wrote them down. We'll have lots of time to discuss, to have questions and answers. If you're comfortable, come on camera. If you're not, that's fine, but I always like to remind you that seeing faces is really nice. All of the materials will be forwarded to you in the next couple of days, including the um, PDF of the slide deck. All right, so Karen and certainly Kevin already know this, and we welcome who's on the phone. 7876 star 6, so we know who you are. Thanks for joining. Star 6. All right. Well, come on when you can. All right, so we're in the ward. So I like this exercise because most of us, it orients us. So, do you know what ward you live in? Do you know who your representative is? Do you know who your legislator is? All right, so Karen and Kevin, I know you do. Dina, what ward are you in? Uptown.
Ward 1, Sarah Pasty.
There you go. Who's your legislator?
Abe Uchitelli.
There you go.
I'm on the committee, the Democratic committee, so I also like canvas and
Okay,
all
so
that.
you know the deal. What about you, Ted? Where are you living now?
I actually live in Tilson now, but I lived in Ward 1 for close to 10 years. So I'm still, Kingston is still kind of where I go for things. Maybe New Paltz a little more now. So yeah.
Great. All right, Kevin, what ward are you in and who's your representative?
Five. And Terrell, I'm trying to think of her last name.
Terrell? Terrell
Yeah,
Micken?
Terrell. Yeah, Terrell Mickens.
And your legislator?
Honestly, I'm not quite sure. I don't know quite how the boundaries line up in the city of Kingston.
You're in 5.
I'm in five, yeah.
Mm-hmm. So that is possibly Gregory McCullough.
Okay.
I thought, I thought five was Abe. I'm wrong, huh?
Could be, they added a district, so, but it's good for us. We can go and look after and see.
Tina
Oh,
is
I'm sorry.
Abe.
No,
Oh,
actually, I'm in nine. I
You're in
forgot.
9. Okay, good.
No, hang on. I'm sorry. No, I was right the first time. Five. I used to be a long time ago. I was in five, and I thought I moved to nine, but it's five.
Okay. You know, the legislature, we do need to know, but it's a bonus point for tonight. We're looking at the ward here and thinking about Kingston. And welcome, Christy. Glad you're here. Do you know what ward you're in? Okay. No? Join us when you can. Okay, so the goals for the training. So this is really designed to help us to think about and center ourselves around local government and learning a bit, applying the 3 branches to our advocacy, to our civic work in the community. And in the second hour, we're going to be joined by Michele Hirsch. For those who are new, Michele is the Ward 9 council member, Alderwoman, and the majority leader of the City of Kingston's Common Council. And she's going to bring forward an update on the upcoming charter reform that we've been anticipating for a decade. So it's good to see this moving forward. Okay, so the training is a couple of hours, as we know, and we want to do this in order to be supportive and to engage more people in civics in Kingston. All right, so just a little bit about Kingston citizens and my personal journey, which is in community organizing here. And it began decades ago, so 20 years ago in Kingston with a local neighborhood issue that brought neighbors together, where we set regular meetings. We did a lot of education, a regular ward meeting to discuss topics and who are the decision makers, and really together learned about what was happening in order to be able to communicate and collaborate with our council member. So we built relationships. It developed trust. This is prior to social media, really. We were relying on one another and seeing one another in person, which is always best. And this was really important and proved, well, invaluable when a national water bottling company attempted to purchase 1.75 million gallons of the city of Kingston's municipal drinking water supply. But because together we knew what to do and where to go within local government, we were able to bring concerns to the table to understand the time frame, who we needed to speak to, and within 5 months of this proposal, which was very complex, that included and engaged the state in all sorts of funding and grants, but we were able to stop the sale within 5 months. And it really has shaped my path and my work today. And it's led to sister groups or chapters, Town of Ulster citizens in the town of Ulster that are very active, and they continue to do great stuff in bloomfieldcitizens.org, actually where Niagara Bottling ended up going next and succeeded. One is because they didn't have an environmental review process, and the other was because their water supply was overseen by the state. So it gave them very little leverage, but it led to many folks running for office, watershed groups being established. And so this work really spins off all kinds of things. It's inspiring to see where folks go when they get this information and they start seeing that they have control over the local landscape. And so with that in mind, I like to ground myself and all of us in a sense of place and advocacy and community organizing and advocacy by reflecting on the commons and our responsibility to protect them. So the commons are a shared resource, and there are things that we all depend on. And resource is probably a bad way of putting it because the environment isn't just for humans, right? It's something that every living being, thing needs, animal, ecosystem. We all need a healthy environment in order to survive. And these things that are available to all of us today need to be to for there to be a continued effort to nurture and protect them for where we are now and for the generations and the of living things to come. And so they require ongoing stewardship to ensure that they remain healthy and accessible for everyone. So caring for the commons is our civic responsibility as community members, and we have to protect what sustains us and make sure that they remain, as we've said, accessible and healthy for all of us now and for generations to come. And for democracy to thrive, good government requires laws and policies, whether they exist, whether they're being reformed or updated or newly made. Laws and policies protect the most vulnerable and uphold equality, justice, and fairness. That is the intent. And without these protections, there's therefore nothing to prevent harm or exploitation. So threats to the commons can include neglect and underinvestment in our infrastructure, such as for water or water in schools and transit, lead to led as well, lead to deteriorating infrastructure. So when the commons degrade or are sold off, marginalized communities are going to suffer the most. Trust in public systems erode, civic engagement declines, and environmental harm increases. And so when local governments can't afford to maintain public infrastructures, then it shifts to private interests. That, as we know with Niagara bottling, the whole sale of water, the intention was for there to be money to pay for infrastructure that needed to be upgraded, which is not the way that we want um, to approach uh, our infrastructure needs. We want to plan and invest in those things. We don't want to be privatizing and selling off things like our drinking water supply. Outdated policies and laws, they'll leave regulatory gaps and loopholes that are will be exploited, and that can happen within our own city government, not just corporations or developers. It can happen across the board. And this leads to weakening protections. And of course, climate change and degradation and pollution that threaten ecosystems and lead to resource loss and harm, and especially to vulnerable groups facing the greatest risks. But reclaiming the commons lies in civic responsibility, and this is what we have control over. And even though, to Kevin's point earlier, it can feel difficult when folks have their thumb on the scale, but the truth is that uh, we hold the power, and our elected officials are really stewards. They're facilitators. They're not, leadership is a term that I don't like to use, and good stewards bring people in. And that's really important that I like to highlight. And so to reclaim the commons on that note, community-led governance, um, uh, there where decisions are shared and made by people who are directly impacted by those decisions, and policy and legislation, good policy and legislation can reverse harmful practices and establish systems for public funding and access and accountability. Education and awareness, which is advocacy, right? And that can inspire civic responsibility in grassroots movements. And instead of a top-down corporate approach, a patriarchal approach, where decisions are made by a few, the community takes the lead in planning, managing, and caring for the commons that we all have the responsibility to protect. So that's why we're here, and we want to engage in local government, perhaps, but we don't know how. Or some of us do, but it's a refresher about some of the things that we have at our disposal, and that we need to make better use of those things. And so with that, we're going to take a quick look at how the government is structured. So overall, so the 30,000-foot view that we can then apply to our local government in the city of Kingston. And so taking a look at the three branches of government, we've got legislative, executive, and judicial. Um, and so we're going to start with the legislative branch of government, and they're important because they write the laws. And so on the legislative side of things, we have the federal side of things that are Congress, U.S. senators and representatives, and they make laws that affect the whole country. Our state and lower house, so the Assembly, the House of Representatives, or the House of Delegates, and they'll pass laws for our state. The county of Ulster, where Dina works, and they pass local laws. And most important to us today are our cities, towns, villages, boroughs, and this is where local laws and policies are created and passed by city councils and township boards, select boards. These are our officials that we work with most directly. All right, at every level, there's an executive, and so they enforce the laws, right? And we have our president, our governor, our county executive, and on the local level, our mayors and supervisors. And here, there's also regulatory boards that are important. They don't make laws either. They use them to guide decisions, such as the planning and zoning boards in our community. And the judicial branch, the courts. So they're responsible for interpreting the law whenever necessary. And all of this matters because it's important for us to understand who has the power to pass or influence the law or policy that you might want to work on. And therefore, who are the people who are in front of you who are doing that work that you need to collaborate with? What's their background? What matters most to them? The more that we understand about our lawmakers, our legislators, the better off we are at tailoring our messages and building out and mapping out our base as we proceed in advocacy. Okay, so in a democracy, the public plays the biggest role. This is City Hall. This is just packed to the hilt. This is a decade ago now, during the Niagara bottling debate. And the public has and plays the largest role. So we vote, we advocate, we educate, we participate on boards, committees, and commissions. We provide input, we hold our elected officials accountable. Um, Communities that advocate and organize effectively can shape local and state decisions, and we've seen that here. And so civics is best thought of as a friendship. It takes ongoing care. So you don't have to do necessarily what I'm doing, but I think checking in with our systems to know who is who and what is something that everybody can do in order to assure that our civic norms can remain healthy. I also just want to touch upon environmental and social justice for a second, because our work needs to be rooted in protecting the most vulnerable community members in our community in order to, when we do that, then everyone is protected. And of course, that's a tried and true saying, but it's something we need to really hold on to when we're doing the work that we're doing. Um, So I'm just moving here. I wanted you to be aware of this. This is one tool. Okay, so there are many ways to be thinking about this, but this is something that most of us don't know, and this comes into play when we're thinking about environmental reviews, which is a mechanism that really is a thoughtful and unique tool to New York State, SEEKR, the State Environmental Quality Review Act, which is currently um, in a precarious position, which we can talk about later if you'd like, with the state governor and her um, effort to let them build campaign. But the thing is seeker is so critical. There are only 4 states in the whole nation that have an environmental review process like seeker. And, working in Connecticut, when we dealt with Niagara, they didn't have one, and it was very difficult. There was no leverage for the community to be able to think through the decisions of putting a 250,000 square foot drinking water plant in their community. So potential environmental justice areas, it's it's what's called a commissioner's policy. It's number 29 for the state. And Kingston has 2 of them that are here. Now, I don't know if this has been updated. Dina might know. But what this is it identifies neighborhoods with higher proportions of low income or minority residents or areas that have higher histories of harms. Um, and so these are considered during the review process that ensure that proposed projects aren't disproportionately harming these areas in our communities. And they require extra public participation and careful assessment of impacts. So, understanding this, and there are many arms to this octopus in ways of approaching environmental and social justice, can help residents engage early, protecting health, housing, and ensure that there's fair treatment in local decision making if we want that. Okay, so we're going to switch gears here and I'm going to just stop sharing because I want to pull up our website um, and start to navigate that way for us now. Um, this is sort of the meat of it. So this is the City of Kingston's website. Has everybody been here? Yes.
Yes, yes.
Well, if you
Yes.
haven't, you have. Great. Um, so it's important for us to now apply all of what we've just walked through to our local government, and you can start here with our municipal website. This is infrastructure. Communications and websites are infrastructure, and they need to be really thought of that way. It's the public's main gateway to local government, and it provides all the information that we need, whether you're looking for recycling or garbage collection or snow removal or information on laws and budgets, meetings and proposed decisions. So navigating the site allows residents to participate earlier and more meaningfully. And that's to say that this is not an easy site to navigate. So we're going to start from the very beginning when you enter into the City of Kingston's website. Um, and just a little history, and I should have written this down. Kevin, I believe that the last iteration of the City of Kingston's website was done in 2017 when Mayor Steve Noble came into office. I think prior to that, the website, that an older rendition of it was actually managed by, at least in part, by the city's planning office. So I think now we have folks at City Hall. We have Summer Smith, who I know is working with the City of Kingston to update and keep things updated and working with the mayor. However, we really desperately need a new iteration that's easier to navigate. All right, so applying the three branches of government that we outlined earlier, let's find them on the municipal website. So what we would do is enter in, and I'm going to start at government and services, which may or may not be the most instinctual uh, tab. I'm not sure. There's a lot to look at, but this is how we're entering in. And if we look at government services and we find the city officials tab, here we're going to find the three branches of government, one of which is sort of hidden within the council page. Um, so we have the mayor, we have the common council. We're going to walk through these on the common council tab. We also have appointments to boards, committees, and commissions. We'll talk about liaison appointments. But I'm pulling this up now to show you that our city judges are located on the City of Kingston Common Council page. Our legislators are also listed on the Common Council page, and appointed officers, which we'll talk a little bit in a minute. I want to stay on point here because as well as the city officials that we need to talk about in a bit, we also have our city charter and code, our administrative code, which is typically the first place I go when I see something and I want to understand what the rules, the laws say about any given issue that arises in the city of Kingston. So the charter is the city's foundational document, and it's essentially, some folks refer to it as our constitution. It establishes the structure of government. We are a strong mayor form of government currently. It defines the powers of elected officials. It sets the rules for how laws are created and changed. And then we have the administrative code, and you'll find that here as well. And I'm having trouble here. Here we go. Whoop, sorry. I'm having trouble here, but essentially on this link, when you look, you're going to see the charter and the code, and they're two different things, right? So the charter lays out or explains how the city is governed. And I'm sorry, I wish we could just take a look at that. Here we go. The code, so here's the charter, but the administrative code lays out how those rules apply in our everyday lives. Different. And we'll talk about that in a bit. Okay, so back to our city officials here. Am I speaking slow enough, too fast?
Mhm.
Is this pace okay for you? Okay, great.
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay, so the mayor. So the mayor serves a 4-year term. There he is currently. And serves as the chief executive officer. The mayor oversees city operations and reviews departmental work, manages the annual budget that's presented to the Common Council in October, maybe a little earlier. It's usually maybe it's adopted by October. Well, it's okay. That's a detail we'll get to in a little bit. Um, the mayor also, on his own, fully appoints commissioners and or board members. Um, the mayor can submit legislation for council referral, needs to find a sponsor for anything that the mayor wants to bring in for discussion and debate. And the mayor may also veto council passed laws, though this is uncommon, although not recently. I think we've seen a veto happen on 2 occasions in the last 6 months or so, a year, and also serves as ADA coordinator. Um, so beyond this, the mayor wields significant authority, as I said, appointing everyone who serves on the boards, committees, and commissions that are really meant to provide advisory advice, whether an elected or a staff likes it or not. That's what you want. You want good information to be able to use to weigh your decisions. Um, the mayor controls most of the Kingston Housing Authority board. The mayor sits on key oversight bodies such as the Water Board, the Police Commission. The mayor shapes economic development through the Local Development Corporation. And with these powers, budget, departmental oversight, legislative influence, public representation, the mayor exercises broad centralized authority um, in order to set priorities and guide Kingston's government. And this is likely the result of our city manager, strong mayor history from back in the 90s, which we'll share in a bit. Um, um, and also of note, again, we look at these references in the definition of mayor. It's described as a he, but the office is gender neutral. So it's important to recognize that the role is open to everyone, anyone. Um, so switching back here, also of importance, we're going to hit the council page. So what's cool about the council page, I think there's too much on here. It's not, again, easy to find, but here's the ward map. So we sort of looked at that earlier, which is important because the ward shows us who represents us on the Common Council and the legislative branch. And each ward as you know, or maybe you don't, elects its own council member. So there are wards, 9 council members, that all are our direct links in the ward. But they also serve on a council body, and they make decisions not only for us individually in our wards, but for the entire city. Um, Understanding the ward also allows us to know where our voting polls are, to make sure that we understand the correct place to go during elections. Um, and it goes without saying that without this knowledge, it's easy to miss opportunities, or to have voices heard, in order to engage our representatives, hold officials accountable. Um, the ward is really our entry point to effective neighborhood level civic participation. Also on the council page is their rules, the council rules. These are updated annually, and they're formally adopted on January 1, with the official document certified by the city clerk. And my understanding is actually the council president and maybe the corporation council are responsible for updating our council rules, but if that's true, it might be beneficial for there to be a process earlier where council members can all voice in on how these rules are upheld. I mean, some of these things have really changed, and I think, like all things, it's never good if only 2 people are working on something like this. Um, so while the with the adoption and certification of these rules, and though it's documented, what the rules don't do is explicitly state who drafts or updates them, as I stated earlier. So it's not clear. Um, and we want our council person to be involved in this because then we can also share insights or concerns to our council member that they can bring into this process, but that requires planning. Um, but still, that's, I think, a critical part here of what governs our council. Of course, all of which is, as we talked about the charter, we talked about the code, but these are just rules on the floor, and the pathway of how things are done here at City Hall. Whoops. Oh no. One moment. Okay. So again, aldermen, these are really important things that are going to get addressed in the council. So the alderperson, the council president, they serve as president of the council. They preside over the council. They appoint all council committees, which we can look at down below. Um, and they hold the same duties and powers as a council member. But they only vote when there's a tie. The position will act as mayor. In the case the mayor there's a vacancy. Um, and they would serve the remainder of the term with the mayor's salary. The resulting alderperson at large vacancy is then, in the case that there is that need, the appointment is filled by appointment for the unexpired term. Um, and interestingly, I don't believe that the council president, or maybe it does, and it's the council members that themselves need to be filled with a council member. I think it can be anyone that is appointed by the mayor, which is interesting. That is true with council too. If a council member ends up stepping down, okay, Dina, thanks for coming. And there's an empty seat, the mayor can appoint
Yeah.
someone.
Okay.
Bye, Dina. So that's quite something. I don't know if you knew that. Um, so let's move into um, let's move into the council for a moment. let's start here. Common Council resolutions. So this is great to understand to recall. These are all of the resolutions that the council have passed, and they have everything up through that begins um, in 2011. So that's quite a bit of content. But if you don't know where it is, then you're not going to be able to access it. It's still tough to actually find what you're looking for here. You really have to sort of like a FOIL request, know exactly what you're looking for and when. Otherwise, you're going to be scrolling through. But it's good to know that this exists. This is an important um, area on the website. So the aldermen, again, can be adjusted. Council members, alderpersons, aldermen or alderwomen. Um, all right, so the of Kingston Common Council, as we said, we have 9 members because we have 9 wards. Each are elected within their ward to serve 2-year terms. Um, they're paid part-time stewards, which is not nearly enough for the kind of work that they do. That's really something that we'd benefit to really look into that. And also another point of reference is that, a lot of these salaries that we see for mayor and council, I mean, back in the day when a mayor's role, for example, was a part-time role, typically it would be filled with someone who was a very prominent business person. And so they had plenty of money and they'd come in almost as a volunteer position. And so their salaries are a reflection of that. And that's really stuck. And that's something that when we discuss salaries and benefits for service, when the bar is really low, I mean, Kingston's salary for the mayor has been changing and the council maybe has too, but we should look at it through that lens that the way these salaries were set traditionally or historically were had everything to do with rich folks coming and serving. So that doesn't give us the best opportunity for diversifying our city government. Um, at any rate, so we have our council members. They serve on committees that are appointed by the um, council president, maybe with some input from the majority leader, which Michele, I don't know if that's true or not. You can just throw it in the text. We also have council liaison appointments, and this is super important because every single board, committee, and commission has a liaison um, to those um, to those boards, committees, or commissions, and really should be bringing in information from those meetings on a regular basis so that the full council knows what's happening all throughout the city. This is a very important role. I'll also say that, in support of our council, that it's very difficult to do work, forward-looking work, if you don't have a strategic plan. And our council currently doesn't. I think Michele's come on, and I know Michele is making a lot of adjustments to these things. Michele?
Hi, I'm sorry. I had to run to the bathroom, and then I was coming back and I heard you say something for me to put in the chat.
Well,
So,
I was curious if the council committee appointments are done between the president and the majority leader.
that tends to be one of the powers of the president, the council president, per the charter. So they tend to do that on their own.
Right, so we have the committees appointments by the president. The liaison, I assume, are done by the president as well.
Correct.
Right. So speaking back to salaries, so the council members are compensated $10,000 a year for what is not a part-time role. And a lot of it is because I think there's a maybe it could be part-time with systems in place, really good systems in place, clear charter, um, a strategic plan, uh, more education, and so Michele and our council members, they're our neighbors, And we can be advocating for these things, even if they take, a long time overall. It's a good road to be on, I think. The the alderperson at large, I think, is paid $12,050 for their service, no health care. And Michele, the majority leader, also is paid the same as the other council members.
I get a little bit of a stipend, but I just dropped in the chat. We're paid now a little over 11,000. We've gotten a raise, so.
Great. Glad to hear that. All right, so then we have our city judges, and this includes Lawrence Ball and Philip Kirschner. They preside over the Kingston City Court. They handle cases that directly affect residents. Their responsibilities include overseeing criminal cases. Um, uh,
Housing and traffic court.
what's that?
Housing and traffic court.
Yeah. Traffic cases, parking and moving violations, civil cases like small claims and landlord-tenant disputes. They conduct pretrial proceedings, they set bail, they issue warrants and ensure that all court processes are meant to be fair and in accordance with New York State law. So the city judges are elected officials, and in Kingston, they serve 4-year terms um, in order to provide continuity and accountability in administrating justice and at the local level. Here we have our county legislators. They represent districts 5, 6, 7, and 8. In each district, which is a combination of wards, elect one legislator to represent them and their constituents on county issues that include budgeting and public services, regional planning, and depending on where they live, um, the Kingston community members may have different county legislators that represent them. Our appointed officers are city clerk, our comptroller, our corp counsel, and a historian. Um, the council currently relies on staff, um, and this is a gap, and we've been talking about this for ages, that include the city's attorney, the corp counsel, and the clerk, predominantly. And both of these serve at the pleasure of the mayor. So while this provides some administrative support, often it creates conflict. And as legal and procedural guidance comes from officials here who are appointed, whose obvious loyalty would need to be, I'm not going to say unequivocally, but I mean, it would logically be to the executive branch that hires them and not the council. Um, and we've been advocating for this for a long time, that the council ensure that it has its own independent oversight for an attorney and clerk, not only for themselves, but in order to really properly represent its constituents. It's super important. Without good guidance, then their role is providing good governance um, can be impacted negatively. So let's see. I just want to get to the comptroller. The comptroller, I'm sorry, I just lost my little talking points here. The comptroller in the city of Kingston is responsible for the financial administration of the city. And its areas of oversight include tax collection and payroll, accounts payable and purchasing, parking permits and enforcement, budgeting and accounting. John Toohey is currently and has been in this role for a long time. And the office that he serves ensures that city funds are managed properly, that financial operations run smoothly, and that public resources are used efficiently and transparently. Um, the city historian is also appointed by the mayor and serves under the mayor's administrative oversight. Past historians have included Edward Ford, who was appointed in 1984. And now we have Taylor Brook, who was appointed in 2019, who also serves as the county clerk. The historian often advises on the local historic preservation committee is a non-voting member of the Historic Landmarks Preservation and Historic Heritage Area Commission. Michele, can you tell us a little bit before we move to the charter? The comptroller is an appointed officer, but is beholden to the council. What is the role the council has in this case as an overlay that is unique and that isn't true with the clerk, corp counselor, historian?
So technically, the Common Council appoints the comptroller and, helps to negotiate their salary. And so by them reporting to the council, it's another check and balance on our local government.
Yeah,
Right.
but Michelle, what is the mechanism for auditing the comptroller's office?
The comptroller's office is audited yearly by an outside auditing firm.
Okay, so the council contracts somebody to do that?
Yes, yes,
Okay.
and those audits are posted. They should be posted on the website.
Where?
Good question. I can look.
Yeah, yeah, that would be great. Right. No, but that's I mean, I didn't mean to put you on the spot, Michele, but
No,
it
that's okay.
um yeah, so I think it's really important just to recognize that your city officials this is how we locate them, and that the council member page probably should be delineated so we understand. I don't think it's intuitive to look and to know that the city judges are legislators or appointed officers, which actually might be listed under government. They have their own offices, so there might be another place for them here. Um, I'm sure there is actually. I'm just not prepared to go there today. I just really wanted to. All right, so I just want to share a couple of more documents and then I want to pause for questions before bringing Michele in to start to discuss with us um, what's currently happening with the charter and charter reform in the city of Kingston and holistic charter reform, which, if done well, can be a really wonderful thing for the community. So I just want to share this with you, just a little context of going back, that in the 70s and through the 70s through the 90s. So um, we actually have links to this for you, and I can share those links. There are also there's QR codes for people to be able to check that out who are watching this later. We have an original copy of the City of Kingston's charter that you can look at, and I think these materials are really important. There's a lot here, but as we're coming into this, to the extent that you have the time and interest, it's good to know that these documents exist and that Kingston Citizens has pulled them all together to make it really easy for you to access them. Um, we have a copy of the proposed revised charter from the City of Kingston from 1993, which led to the city manager form of government. So in July of 1993 to February 3rd, 1993. And we also have the local law that amended the charter of the City of Kingston that reversed the city manager form of government that we had to a strong mayor form of government. And there's a lot of information out there that tells that story. So I'm not going to get into that tonight, although I'd be very happy to talk about that anytime. Or to share resources that can show tell the tale of that time period. And so this is, and I'll drop the link in. Kingston citizens created a document that outlines the steps that have been taken, um, beyond the 1993, 1994 process that really set the stage for where we are today, for better or for worse. This document will help take you through what the city's Common Council has done to move to where we are today since 2017. And this is really interesting. So I've been piecing together the history of the city manager strong mayor debate with newspaper articles, one by one, going through at the Kingston Library, just because I'm interested, and I also really like the hunt, going through all of the materials to find. And so this is a still a work in progress. I started it before COVID, and then I lost access to the library, and that was that. So I need to get back to it someday, maybe when I retire. But it's here for you, and there's a lot of good content in here to help tell the story from the horse's mouth. And I'm happy to pull up any of those materials that we can just kind of look at if you want. But otherwise, I'm going to pause. That was a lot. I'm still learning how to winnow this down. This is a big story to tell. And I really appreciate having this opportunity to do it. And because we know a lot of things, but sometimes, um, to be able to show the arc is definitely an art. And so I hope that some of this was helpful, if not all of it. And I'll pause for questions. Or,
Okay.
yep,
Oh,
yep, please. Yep.
okay. I know this is not really that important, but I think labels and names matter. So when you talk about president of the council,
Mhm.
or you talk about alder member at large, are they used at different times? I mean, if you're looking them up, what would I look for? Would I look for the older member at large, or would I look at president of the council? And council and alderman, all of that, is that in the charter that we have now? What do they use in the charter when talking about the council and the alder members? How are their titles? What are they? In the
Michelle,
title and the,
yeah, do you want to answer that?
Hi, they're actually in the charter as both things. They are the aldermen at large. They preside over the whole city, but then I guess they become the president when they're presiding over common council meetings.
oh,
That's interesting.
that's interesting. Okay.
Yeah. So, and their role in the charter, like their power, I'll say, things that are assigned to them specifically is setting the council rules and making those committee assignments and liaison assignments. And earlier you were speaking about the rules, Rebecca. We do have, the council has the opportunity to chime in and give feedback on proposed rules, and we do that.
Where
There'll
do you
be
do that? Where do you do that work?
in the beginning of the year, they'll be discussed before they're voted on. Sometimes they'll get amended if we want to amend something mid-year, and it'll be discussed in mostly laws and rules.
Is there is there like there are things, sometimes we've talked about this, like what is the process, for instance, of a local law? Or, processes that the public may or may not know. They have to go looking to the state to find out how that work is done. Is that information somewhere for the public to understand the process of things, such as what I just described?
Not laid out specifically, but I think that when we have our website redone, we should really have a council page that also shows everything and explains what is currently in process, what resolutions are being worked on, what local laws are being worked on, et cetera, in the process that we're in.
Mhm. Go ahead, Ted.
My question is about the city website. I definitely agree that it needs some updating. And I also just wrote a paper for school that involved a review of certain aspects of the website. So it's interesting to hear about today. But my question is about agendas and meeting minutes. I've found, I don't know if it's just me, but I feel like every time I want to go see how a meeting went, I can't find, it seems to be only a few committees and councils who are really good at uploading their minutes, and even their agendas sometimes. So I was just wondering, like, is that a requirement at all? Is there anything as a citizen, like, I mean, I guess you could go directly to the source and be like, I just wonder, I don't know about like what open meetings laws and things are like, but it's just kind of frustrating that they're not available. And I know the YouTube like recordings are available, but I hate having to like fast forward through a 2 hour meeting to like find what happened. And I mean, like different committees are better than other. The Common Council is like better than some of the advisory committees, but I mean overall.
Yeah, so Ted, I share your frustration because when I have to look things up, even for my own counsel from a couple of years ago, it can sometimes be difficult. We are in the middle of having everything updated and even having records that were never digitized to be scanned and uploaded. So a whole new system is going to be built. One of the issues I think with the that will be good with the charter review is possibly having some more staff assigned to the council. We don't have really dedicated staff that takes care of our stuff. We have Elisa Tinty and a deputy uh, clerk in their office, but they are tasked with working on everything for the city and for the city hall. So I'd like to see that one day the council has dedicated staff, and then we can have all of this, updated on the road.
And like I said, the council's a little better than like, I know a lot of the advisory boards are like volunteer run, but I wonder, I know they're supposed to be doing it, but it's like, what is there? There's no real accountability to like make them do it, I guess.
Well, open meetings law requires minutes to meetings to be posted within 2 weeks of a meeting, but agendas, on the other hand, there is, as far as I know, are not any requirements for agendas to be posted within a certain amount of time prior to meetings. There was at one point during COVID an executive order, as I recall, and again, I'd have to go back and look. I wish we had a lawyer here to answer these questions in the way you deserve them, but there was an executive order and a 48-hour requirement at one point that I recall,
Yeah, I remember that.
but there's no longer, there isn't that. And the problem is that um I don't know, maybe though the council can set, so I know that I've seen bodies actually write into their bylaws how agendas are to be handled, you know? And so they could create some sort of clarity on that and then stick to it unless there's an emergency. But a lot of times materials are added to the agenda, I think, really the day of, the day before, like without time even for the council or maybe the body to review it, not enough time to review it. Um, and that could be because folks are so busy, right? Giving the benefit of the doubt. It could also be because um, the intention was not to allow for discussion and the proper amount of time that somebody needs to review something. So that is potentially something that could be looked at couldn't it, Michelle?
Yeah, so the council, the law is that we have to have something posted, not necessarily all the paperwork about an agenda item, but if it hasn't been on the agenda, it has to at the very minimum be 24 hours ahead. We might have the resolution and the local law, and maybe that day additional paperwork will get uploaded. But we also have a council rule that we really need to have, if we're going to be taking a vote, that the council needs to have at least 48 hours to have materials. And as majority leader this year, I'm trying to really slow down us taking votes on anything substantial the first night that we are hearing about it.
Is that true for all committees, boards, and commissions? For is it just specifically true for the council? What you
That is for the council. I think that I don't know how much of open meeting law applies to boards and commissions, like planning board, ZBA, they're doing actual government decisions. So like an advisory board might be different, where they're not doing technically government work.
So in this case, if you went to the City of Kingston's website, one easy way to see what's going on is to, tap onto the body that you're interested in and on the evening they're meeting and take a look to see. And in this case, there's nothing here, right? So this is one body that is not, there's no agenda here. Um, let's go to the caucus when we know that there's information here. Here is the legislative list and the proposed resolutions, the local laws that are being discussed, and a link at least to the live stream. But the result of that is Ted is saying, like, what is the outcome? How is this reported back without having to listen to the the video or what have you? Is there a place where the list of resolutions are? Is that what we would see here going back?
It's what you were just showing earlier.
And that's where you would see who voted for what. So let's take a look at that slowly. So we just went into the City of Kingston's website and we're going to click on government um, and services, and we're going to find our city officials. And then so you'll never find this if you don't know this. So, but we're going to walk through it anyway. The Common Council, right? Common Council resolutions. Make your selection. So let's just look in 2026. We're going to choose from March. March legislation list. So this doesn't, maybe it's because it's too early. Let's go back and look at January. Okay, so then let's go back and look at a year like 2025. Right, and it's not, again, you've got the city clerk doing all of this, right? And the limitations, which is why it would be so helpful to think through and organize the needs of our council so that they can govern. So here's a resolution that I was following and interested in, and here I can see this is great. This is the resolution signed by the mayor on the record, which happens following the vote with the council. This is their committee report, which is really great because you can see the council members and their vote, at least in committee. How this turns out on the floor could vary, right? And then the meat. So it's at least some helpful information that be used as a guide as you listen to the video. And
But Ted, for what you were asking about before, though, would you want to see a transcript of the actual meeting instead of the YouTube video so that you could search through that? You know,
I mean, I think there might be functionality now to do that through YouTube. I'm not sure,
well,
but
even if it's not YouTube, it could be something else. It doesn't matter.
yeah, I mean, I know and like planning board posts their audio, but I have to kind of say in fairness that the board I had in mind that I was looking for earlier, it's kind of like because of the website, I was actually able to find their minutes. But like I thought I could go back on the calendar and click on like a past meeting, the minutes would be linked there, but I found them by going through like, you know, agendas, minutes, packets, meetings, dates, and recording, and then like the drop down tree. So those are there, but then I was spot checking like other ones, and some don't really, they're very spotty. But Common Council is like, I know eventually it'll be there.
I
If
can't remember right now, but I do know that there are also new technologies that exist where all of this stuff can be inputted. I mean, it's a matter of money and staff and time and all of that, but it really is about organizing and prioritizing
Right.
what's important. And there's plenty of ways to do this without like I just showed you a Google Doc of an intermunicipal council that lists every single resolution, who voted and when, and you can just find. But that's still not really how government should be making sure this stuff is. I mean, government is the public's business, so I'm sure there's lots of good technologies out there, but the council is, I think a strategic plan would really help because there's a lot coming at the council all of the time. When you say, Michelle, I mean, how do you feel about that? And what do you think about systems and what kind of conversations might you and the council be having about how to make this information easier for the public that's paying for it through their tax dollars to have this accessible to them?
Yeah, I mean, this is a conversation that we have had about, with the website. It's occurred in various meetings, depending on what the subject is, but nothing like strictly dedicated about this. I would say that the workload since my coming on in 2020 has definitely increased through the years and has increased for the council. We are not really part-time legislators that come home at the end of the day from our jobs and hit the voicemail on the old machines to see, who called and needs a stop sign or a pothole filled. We get calls about so many things every single day. And I think that overall, that is why we really need to take a look at the charter and how things are run and allocated and resources are allocated. It sometimes feels like the council and the resources that we are given are sort of an afterthought because in the strong mayor type of government, all of the decision making really comes from the administration.
And Michelle, just real quick,
Sure.
who's involved in redesigning the website and what's the timeline?
I don't have the timeline off the top of my head, but I believe Summer Smith has been working on it with IT.
Summer Smith is working to build a new website?
Well, working with them and trying to get like information up. But I can't give you like definitive answer on that right now.
I mean, I don't know what Summer's background is, but redoing a serious redo of this
Yeah, I don't
website.
think she's like redoing it, but I think they're getting information up into this website now, and then it'll get migrated over to a new
But
website.
whatever it gets migrated to takes a lot of effort from a lot of different kinds of skills. And that's where I'm wondering where those are going to come from.
Yeah, so I can't speak to that. I don't have that answer for you, and I
Okay.
don't want to misspeak because
Okay. No,
I
that just when you were talking before, it sounded like this was well underway. And I'm like, okay, I haven't heard anything about this. But yeah, no, it's a serious piece of work to redo this and do it right. And it starts with understanding requirements and it starts with people writing stuff down to do, think through everything before you go start doing anything.
So
Have a
Kevin,
requirements document, have an architecture, have a design, right? Before you actually start doing things. And unfortunately, most web development outfits don't do that.
I don't know that they aren't doing that because that's like not information that's necessarily given to us if we don't have a role in it. So,
well, can I just say that as a productive thought process in this way is that, we need a new website. So Kevin, I know how integral you've been in many with the website, with Kingston happenings. all of the work that you've done over the years, you have that knowledge, right? And what what would happen, Michelle, if a community member said, you know what, I want to go to the council and I want to submit a communication to talk to um, general government, and I want to say, listen, we need a new website, and I would like to, ask the council to work with us, whoever that is, Kevin and others, to prioritize a new website and to discuss it for the budget in the next budget session. Like, what could a community member do to get you to be involved? You, the council, Michelle.
Well, you could send a communication into Terrell and ask her to bring that forward since she's your representative.
Okay.
And I'm sure the
I mean,
council would be very happy to discuss it. We might be further along than I'm representing. I'm sorry that I don't know.
well, I did have this discussion with the mayor 3 years ago, and obviously not too much has happened since.
But the mayor can't make that decision alone. That's the thing is it has to be funded. It has to be funded.
Yep.
Whether maybe he can write a grant for it because he writes a lot of grants and with their but what I'm looking to do is figure out that's a heavy lift for
Mhm.
someone
Mhm.
to say, I want to focus my focus is on the city's website and its communications infrastructure and finding the simple steps to move it for a discussion with the council to make it a priority and to work with the mayor. And that is actually really productive because it shouldn't just be one person's decision. And again, if the council's involved with the mayor, in theory, then you're going to have more of a say, You're going to have more of a role in helping to guide it. And you've
Yeah.
been doing it a long time. I'm acknowledging that, but so have I. And we have to keep finding the route, the way through, the way to do the work. And I'm assuming that because you're here, you you care and you still have the desire to maybe bring an idea forward. I don't know. It's a heavy lift. I'm just saying,
Oh, it absolutely is. And I'll just say something else too. Having the best website in the world can still be a pile of crap unless you have all the business processes and resources put in place to manage it thereafter.
right. And I
Right.
think,
And,
people are
and that
watching
part is
this.
as big a heavy lift as
Yeah.
designing the website.
So we don't need to get into that. What we're doing here is we're trying to help people understand if you have a problem, well, how do you bring it forward? If you have something you really care about, how do you navigate forward to do some of that work and collaborate with a
Yeah.
sponsor?
And,
And
and I'll also say, the mayor has a few times in public forums that said, "Oh, yeah, we're redoing the website. Oh, we're redoing the website," which makes it obviously sound like that's a work in progress.
okay, Christy,
I just had a question if you had any updates on the Secra proposed environmental changes.
go ahead, Michelle.
Oh, I don't. It's part of the state budget, so that hasn't passed yet.
But the Common Council took a swift action that was appreciated, and I can share the seeker sheet. Christy, you're following it through the city, or are you following it through the state? Is your question mainly about the city?
Mainly about the state, if you had any updates and heard anything. I know that the budget hasn't been passed yet. I was just wondering if there was any discussions going on about, it maybe leaning one way or the other.
We don't know. But if you reach out to Riverkeeper, they might have more information.
Okay, thanks.
So, Michelle, would you like to launch into what's happening? So I've shared links to the charter in the chat. Um, and Michelle, I'm just gonna have you take it away.
Sure. So it's been about 2 years now that former Alderman Rennie Scott Childress brought forward a communication for the council to look at charter reform or establish a commission to review the charter and make potential updates. So Prior to December 25, the council worked on establishing a local law that we passed. And the language in it was to establish a charter commission, review commission, and it would have 18 members with two alternates. Three of the Charter Commission members will be appointed by the mayor, and three will be appointed by the Common Council. And the rest of the members will be chosen by a sortition process. And what that will be is we are going to send out a postcard to every household in the city of Kingston in English and Spanish, explaining that a charter commission is going to be seated and with a link of where people can go to sign up and fill out some information if they're interested in serving on this commission. So that should be launching within the next month or two. We're a little behind. We're going to be working with a group out of Colorado that we chose, the National Civic League. They've been in business for over 100 years, and all they do is charters across the country. So they've worked on hundreds of charters. They have years and years of very good experience, and we chose them through an RFP process and about three different we had about three different responses, and the council decided ultimately to go with them. So in our charter, we have language that goes back to our first charter, the 1800s, and it talks about what the mayor's responsibilities are. And this language kind of blows my mind, honestly. It's about keeping down mobs and riots and protecting, the city in that regard.
We'll get there.
So, but it's old militia language. It's an old language that connected to New York State militia law. And that's been removed, but the responsibility of that hasn't. And when I think about things that our mayor or council should be doing now as part of our charter, I think what else can we add? We can add information, language about protecting our environment, protecting the health and safety of the community, about housing, things that we should be responsible for. How do we engage with our citizens? What does that look like? What is the bare minimum of ways to draw the public in? And also language about diversity. We see what's going on at the federal government and how they're abolishing everything with DEI, but who do we want to be here locally? And what can we make sure is in our founding document that will survive whatever administration that we have? Some of the things that I think about what I hope the Charter Commission will look at. I think everyone of this council is going to be bringing forward different ideas. First of all, gender neutral language, so I'm no longer an alderman. And this year, we have four new council members. So that's nearly half of our council is brand new. So I think, well, what could be an alternative so that we don't lose information? Maybe look at 4-year terms, maybe look at alternating terms so that everyone isn't up for election at the same time. Maybe we have some council members that are full-time. Maybe we go from 9 to a smaller amount and have them be full-time. These are just all like things that I think about. We definitely need to work on the division of power. Like Rebecca said earlier, the mayor reappoints a council member if a council member leaves. That just doesn't make sense. If we want to have a council retain some of their own power, we should be able to appoint someone if they step down. Also about staffing for the council. How does it work? Right now, Corporation Council and the clerk both are appointed by the mayor and they serve at the pleasure of the mayor. We can't really tell them what to do or do for us. Everything goes through the mayor. We can't speak to department heads. That has to go through the mayor. So when we were going to do this RFP for to find a charter consultant, it was actually it really showed we didn't know how to do this. We didn't know how to write an RFP. We didn't have staff to write an RFP or send it out for us. And so it was sort of like we were building a process and we didn't have budget for this. So we had to put a budget line into the budget and allocate funds. So it really showed that we don't have tools at our disposal to do things and get things done. So I'm looking forward to looking at that. Some people have called for term limits in the community. I'm not necessarily in favor of term limits. I think that the community and voting is what creates a term limit. If someone is unhappy with their representative, they should be engaged in the process and finding new people to run. And then as far as boards and commissions, most of them are seated by the mayor. There are a few more that are coming down from the state of New York where the local legislative body it has to appoint them. So that has been a few of them have been then seated by the common council.
Michelle, what happens when the charter is complete and the process is complete, the charter is adopted to our to our code? So the laws that reflect it do those remain the same? Do they have to be also addressed in some cases?
Well, the in looking at the charter, we'll be also looking at the code as well. So, because that's how the power is established in the charter, and then the municipal code is where um, everything is laid out.
So when we talk about charter reform, we're also talking about looking at the code.
Yes, yes.
So,
And some of those changes then that would have to be passed by the council, not with the charter.
right. So like as a almost a follow-up.
Yes, yeah, the administrative code.
Yeah. Michelle, in the beginning, I mentioned about not having the right skills in the right positions and that sort of thing. I would hope that's part of the charter discussion also in terms of, there's this minimal set of skill set that we need to have in the mix, right? That should be on board. And somehow they need to be there. And that gets back to the strong mayor versus, someone, city manager kind of form of
Mhm.
government theoretically. And, it doesn't necessarily have to go one way or the other, but somehow those skills have to be guaranteed to be in the mix. I mean, it's kind of interesting to watch where it's a situation where people don't even know what they don't know.
Right.
So you have
I'm
to really
writing that
prevent
down.
that.
Can we dig into that a little bit? Just so Kevin, when you talk about skill set, you mean in you mean those positions at City Hall. I'm just circling back because you said it, because
Yeah,
skill sets are not applied to elected officials, right? Because we know it's
right.
unconstitutional.
There's no guarantee that you elect someone mayor that understands how to manage people,
That's right. So
right? There's no
what are you talking about, just to be clear? You're talking about the different forms of government that become available when you're looking at charter reform, or are you talking about new staff or skills in City Hall to do different jobs?
well, theoretically, if uh, you have an elected mayor but a city manager, the implication can be that the city manager would have many of those skills, right? That would be the type of person that you would hire. You'd hire somebody who's got an MPA, and theoretically they've acquired those kinds of skills and have that kind of experience behind them. So that could be one way of making sure those skills are in place. And the other way is, again, making sure that there's positions within the administration that is like a human resources manager, that is someone who's an has an economic development background, has, a number of other skills. I can't think of them all off the top of my head, but, that just aren't there right now.
Yeah. I mean, it'll be really great to have a consultant that's laying out all of I mean, when there's a charter commission, they're going to be working with the consultant who's going to talk through, and I would presume the options that are in front of folks? Like, how does that work, or do we know yet?
Well, they in with every consultant that we spoke with, one, some were more geared towards city manager, right? Like that they had that background, and
Mhm.
others were more tailored their presentation to strong mayor. And I always wanted to check that we are not going to be biased one way or another when they're presenting information to the Charter Commission, and that they explain all of the various options. And that is something that they are committed to doing.
Great. Ted.
I feel like maybe I used to know this and forgot, but what is the like ratification process? Is it like the commission kind of develops this draft with and is there like a referendum for it or does the common council vote on it? Like what's the end
Yeah. So we
outcome?
would vote to move it to referendum
Okay, that's
in
what I thought.
27. Yeah. So the local law that we passed has a 2-year window, and it has to wrap up within 2 years.
Why is
Cool.
that, Michelle? What is that time frame about exactly? Is it tied to charter reform, or is it just something arbitrary, or is it part of the local law process? What?
It comes down from the New York State, Department of State, and the guidelines for passing the law. So that's for a council-led charter commission. If you had a mayoral-led commission, you don't have to pass a local law, and you could just have, some focus groups and, change it arbitrarily as you see fit. So we
When
chose
did
to go this route.
did the clock start already on that, or is that
Yeah, the clock started when we passed the local law at the end of 24.
at
I
the
mean
end of
25,
20?
25, 25. Sorry.
So we're 3 months behind, 4 months behind the curve already.
Well, not necessarily. We just getting the contracts tightened up. So I think we'll have that signed next week or the following week.
Okay, because I mean, you see how engagement works around here.
Yes, yeah.
So,
So originally we were thinking like it would be one meeting a month for the Charter Commission, but it looks like we might have to compress it and have more than one meeting.
yeah, especially in the beginning. I mean, you can feel your way around after, but you got to hit the floor running.
Yeah, I like the idea of more than one meeting if possible. I mean, and this is what will be presented to people when they apply and when the interview process, that it may need to be more than one meeting.
So where will the public be able to find information? And Karen, I see you, for, you know, this process. Where will it live and when will it be available?
So we're hoping that it will be on Engage Kingston, which is like a subsidiary website of the website, with like it's broken down by projects. Um, and information will be on there as we're in the process. Like I mentioned, we will have a mailing. We're going to be doing as much community outreach as we can, including possibly tabling at the farmers market, tabling around the community, flyering, press, just
Is
get
that
the word
part?
out.
Is that within the consultant's contract for them to spearhead that?
Some of it, we'll see what I haven't seen the contract yet, so
Okay.
but the council is prepared to step up and do some of that work as well.
Go ahead, Karen.
Well, that's a little bit what Kevin had asked about the consultants, the charter consultants, and who exactly made that. They did, certain groups did presentations, the consultants, who had the final decision to choose this particular consultant, and when does their contract start? Is there a date that they start?
Yeah, so the council ended up choosing the commission, and that being the consultant, sorry. And I think that was one of the vetoes that the mayor did,
No,
and we overrode that veto.
interesting.
So the contract is finishing up now, so I think it probably would be within the next couple of weeks would be the start date.
Do we know if the okay, Christy, thanks for coming. Do we know if
I-
by so, a big part of advocacy is power mapping. And this is more than, I'm not suggesting you do it, but the consultant could and with support. So, one of the things that's really difficult to track down in Kingston is all of the groups. I remember decades ago, when there was a small grant to try to do this work, and I'm just looking, there's a lot of cultural asset work, etc., of this part of town or that part of town or the arts. But I'm just wondering, where does this information, how would a consultant go about looking to see, um, okay, the PTAs in the city of Kingston, or do the public housing authorities have homeowners groups, or, to really get into an honest look at all of the groups, which is hard because it may not exist.
Well,
Uh,
we have a lot of those lists from when we did the charrettes with Dover Cole for the
zoning.
zoning code. Yeah, there was really, really vigorous community outreach with that.
Did they compile it somewhere so that there could be
The Office of Housing Initiatives has that information,
excellent.
and
So
they've been using it recently, even with their presentations with the Housing Task Force.
I mean, that would be one heck of a job to try to make that a living,
Yeah.
breathing thing for everyone to see, so that when we're all doing our work, we're actually doing it more efficiently
Mhm.
and with more people in mind than just the people we know and the echo chambers.
Right, right. Yes. And process that we're going to with choosing the commission, they've done this thing, a sortition process where all the applicants go into a computer program and it kind of spits out names so that we're hoping to get people that have never been involved before to be involved. So
Well,
and
that's
that has happened like down in Decatur, Georgia, where this the National Civic League has just finished doing some charter work down there.
great. And what is the educational process? I guess that'll be outlined also in on Engaged Kingston. So, maybe this is sort of a redundant question, but I'm still not getting it. So, if the once the Charter Commission is selected and they're doing the work, is there a timeline that shows for the first 3 or 4 months there's an educational process of where we were, where we are, and where we can go and what the options are? Before and also reviewing the charter, I assume that the consultant will be doing a lot of that work and sharing it and getting input from the charter commission. But how are we bringing the people along who might have be coming to the table with all different degrees of experience, some none?
Mhm.
How are we bringing everybody along to get to the point where they have a fighting chance of giving good input?
So that will be something that well they'll have to explain how they're going to do that.
They haven't yet.
No, not yet.
Okay. That'll be important. All right. And Michelle, as the majority leader now for the council, it just seems like, I mean, it's very visible to me that there are some real changes being made that are making making things a little easier actually for the public to collaborate with the council. And I think I just want to circle back with well, apply this to the charter. So, for residents, community members who might be interested in being a pick of the council or a mayor of the mayor, like how is that all going to work? Are you all just making decisions about that based on community members that you're aware of that are
No,
not,
well, we're going to have everyone, at least the council anyway, apply in the same way
and
as
you choose from that,
yeah.
okay. And do you think, while you're at it, I mean, sometimes when one applies for these things, they never get feedback that their application was approved or received, or even know whether or not they've been um, they've been selected or not. And so will there be a different kind of process than what currently exists with boards, committees, and commissions?
I believe so. I believe that they're going to have to have conversations with people that apply. It's not going to just be sort of like, oh, I have your application, you sound great. Like there has to be conversations with people. So it'll be more in depth.
So Ted asks, was it three common council members, three of the,
Appointed by the council and three appointed by the mayor.
okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So that's six, and then the remaining will be just random selection.
Yes. And two alternates.
Two alternates that are also
Also,
random.
yes, random.
Oh, that's smart. And so the group will have to have all of their work done by when in order for the council to vote and then for it to go to referendum. How much
Think,
time?
think by like July of 27, June, July 27.
So this project process will have to be done by July of 2027 in order for the council to vote to approve it,
And then go to
for
referendum.
it to be on the November ballot. Great. That's
Hmm.
good clarity. That's quite a bit of time if we can get started soon.
We're very anxious to begin.
Yeah. We really thank you for your work, all of the council members, for bringing this forward. It's been quite a wrestle to get to this place, and it's exciting to be here now. Does anyone have any other questions for Michele about charter? Or any questions about charter in general? Kevin, how much energy do you have to propose a new website for the city of Kingston?
Um, I'll see if I can find Terrell and see what's involved. It shouldn't be, I mean, what should it take? I mean, should really just say, you know what? It sucks. We really need to make this a priority to get it
No.
fixed, and
But you know what? You could be an inspiration to people. That's what,
God,
yeah, but this is what we want to do. We want more and more people because it's really tough. I know. I know. But if we got to keep trying, if we have the energy and to access the right channels in government to see what we can do,
you
and
see how flat my forehead is?
I know. Well, if it's any consolation, there's much appreciation for all the work that you do and have done. It's community members like you that, it is that make Kingston what it is, a wonderful place to live. And it's frustrating and it's all of the things. And I think if we can keep coming back to our goal of, okay, we want to get something done, what can we do to contribute to that? And find ways of making it productive and fun. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'd like to see more of that, the spirit of that. And that's I think that that's what we need to do if we're going to engage. So I love that you're going to reach out to Terrell. I think that's a great conversation to have. Report back.
It'll be interesting.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hey, I totally understand that like a complete overhaul is important. Like we did that when I worked the land trust, but I feel like there's some things that could just be done that would make it like so much better. Like I'll just say I'm in a MPA graduate program right now, and I had to write a um I had to pick a city and like write a policy memo about the city's like disaster preparedness. So I analyzed Kingston, and
Good.
Kingston has done a lot, like pretty good work, I think, for a small city in disaster preparedness. But the web page is like this one feed that I think people have just been adding information to, like all the way down for years. And
Okay.
it's like emergency information. So I feel like there should be like at least the contents at the top that like links and jumps for people. But it's like anything related to like emergencies and disasters.
Yeah, part of
Um,
Ted, part of the problem is that website's on a proprietary base, and it's very difficult to make significant changes to the website without involving the people that are contracted to provide that, and it's expensive as hell to make any kind of changes to it. So I think probably people have just been nickel and diming it for the last couple of decades. Believe it or not, I was actually in on the original design group for the original City of Kingston website back in the 90s. And this hasn't changed much since then.
So you know what though? Let's see where, so how would we even find that information?
I got it by Google. And sometimes I use like the Google search in the top right on the web page. But usually if I want to find something on the City of Kingston website, I Google it and then write City of Kingston because I don't have time for that. Yeah, this page.
Let's take a look though. So
Like
this is
just
how,
keep scrolling.
so it's disaster preparedness and recovery. So you can see the trajectory. I like to try it. So let's go to the trajectory. So government and services, and then it says disasters. There it is. Disaster preparedness and recovery. There it is. Okay, so now we know where to find it without having to Google. But so, right, here we go. Does everybody know that they can sign up for for messages? And I think that changed over the years. There used to be phone calls, but I think that scared some people and they stopped doing that for, but maybe it's
Well, nobody answers your phone.
Yeah, they're pasting in like a lot of logos, like a lot of heading hierarchy, but
Yeah.
it's like some of it's out of date.
I feel
It's
like
like
some of the most useful info is towards the bottom.
yeah, it's good information. It's just like if you needed to quickly access it or something, or like you might not even know it's some things that fall
wow.
down.
I mean, I wouldn't have known that
Be-
this
Right.
page had all of this on there, which to me is uh important. What, I'm sorry, Michelle, what were you going to say?
It would be great to have like a landing page with buttons with each of those
Yeah,
categories.
Even
that's
if
task
there were
oriented.
the the headings at the top where you could like click the heading and jump down to that part of the page.
Yeah,
I don't know what you call that.
Well,
yeah, anchor links, but no, it should be more task oriented. Like in case of if this in this situation, here's what you need to do, and organize it
that's a
based
great
on different
idea.
things.
Yeah, because so objectively, when I look at this, what is the message that I receive when I see this? And
Overwhelm.
okay, overwhelm. What else? What other messages might there be in the way this is organized?
It kind of doesn't seem there's like a dedicated or organized like person responsible for this,
It's not a
like
priority,
emergency stuff.
right?
Right. Right. So even if there are a lot of great people behind the scenes working to make this do this work and make it possible, and you can be sure there are, the end result is maybe a lack of care, a
Well,
lack
who
of
owns the
priority.
plan? Who owns the plan?
What's the plan? So,
Who's no? Who's responsible for preparedness and
The
oh, you're
fire chief and
And the mayor too.
Julie Noble, I think, is like the assistant disaster recovery person. We passed, I guess, a year ago, like 300-page replan.
Yeah, I just read that for my paper.
well, I mean,
so this is critical. This is an important page, right? And unfortunately, this isn't part of the charter reform, but it is, I'm glad we're putting this on the record right now, right here for discussion. And to me, this page alone, the city officials page with the chart with the council members and everything else under the sun that you wouldn't know to look for is I think um you know I mean if we go back and look at, and this is an exercise, so your alder person is Terrell and getting to know what Terrell's interested in and what might resonate with her. And I'm just using her as an example. Could help you to pull the things off of the website for her to see that might, shake the tree and get very quick results in an understanding if it's not obvious. And a lot of times it's not obvious. And finding ways to communicate things, the way people learn and understand information. So, um, if I were on the council and I saw this and I saw that there was interest in there being a discussion within the council committee, I'd be all in. I think that this is really important. And thank you for raising this point, Ted. And thanks for doing your work. Maybe that could be something that can be really helpful because this is important. You know what I don't see on here though, and I'll just say, just want to look for a minute.
I don't see how this is accessible for people with disabilities either.
Oh, no, God, no.
No.
It's not even accessible for me.
It's
I mean, there's too many font sizes and
not accessible
highlighting.
for anyone with ADHD.
Yeah, no. Yeah, yeah.
There's kind of, I wrote about like, there's other separate flood preparedness and emergency and evacuation route, like different web pages for that. I don't even know if it's linked here, but there's kind of like a little bit of different silos of like work that has been done in the past. Like there's brochures about flooding. They're linked on another website or like page on this site.
It's missing from here unless I'm not seeing it. I mean, we have a train that runs right through our city, and there could be a derailment or something. I don't see any information about that here, which is complicated item, but I do know, for example, that we do have these foam trailers. They're tiny. Don't really that the DEC provides in the case of a spill, but they exist. And I think that they're down at the building department, for instance. But anyway, that probably is somewhere on here. I would just have to Google it. But all of this is such helpful discussion. And um, I I'm glad that we're having it here. I wish we were doing it more often. I wish there were more places for us to have these conversations, especially with a steward like Michele. Um, Ward meetings is a good place for these kinds of conversations. I know you host a ward meeting. It would be great if in the charter
Yeah.
that council members were required to hold one meeting a month or at least a quarter, which is not enough. But they serve in committees and they're liaisons but once the public votes, it's just they're really kind of out of touch. And that should be, I think, codified myself. Go ahead, Karen.
Okay, there's only a few of us here.
Wait,
Um,
recording.
there's only a few, but it is being recorded. Now, how do you make people aware and who knows about the recordings to listen to? And do you have any idea who listened to the last recording? Do you know that? Did people?
Well, no, I don't. I mean, I can see,
Oh,
I mean, so Kingston Citizens, as it's always been, is a volunteer platform. It's never accepted funds because we need to be nimble and the community has benefited by our ability to be able to move fast if we need to. Um, and so, at the moment, Kingston Citizens is yeah, it's just a volunteer. We have a newsletter, we have a Facebook page. We rely on people sharing information. There's so much information. I think it's difficult.
okay, so in that information, is there a link to the recording to this Civics 101?
Yep.
And
So
how many people receive? Because this information, just from today,
it's
I
good,
think,
right? It's good.
oh, excellent. And then you went over a lot from last uh, session too. So,
Well, I'm glad for reoccurrers. And let me show you this. So one of the reasons why I built this thing, which is just a little simple free Canvas sheet, is so that you can bookmark it. and you can share whatever you'd like with folks. So, um, I've got links to, okay, I've got to relink that. There, the point is here is where we link the videos, so people can see and get the information all in one place. So you can, in here, and I'll update this, but in here is where, as it pertains to this work, um, um, you should be able to get all the information you need to share. I mean, this is one of 100 things going on that I'm working on. So I wish that I could do a circuit and do, and I'm at the mercy if the papers don't want to write about it, they won't. If Kingston Radio doesn't want to promote it, they did the last one, then they don't. They have that ability to make those decisions. I can't force the press, but I think having this as a record is at least valuable. Um, hopefully more people will see it. You never know when the tipping point will come, Karen. But anyway, thank you so much for being here. Michele, thank you for taking a couple of hours out of your busy schedule, and the same for all of you. And I will make this available to you.